hello, everybody. Mark Newstater with eXp Realty. It is Thursday, June 3rd, and it's June. It's time for our weekly market update. And today it's always exciting when we get to talk about the monthly stats, which we will get to in a second. Jaden, how are you doing? Are you managing to stay cool at all up there in Crossfield?
Yeah, so after our debacle with the internet last week, I did a bit of a check, and I realized that when I put up my satellite dish, there was no leaves on the trees. And since the leaves came in, it was blocking all the signal. So I was crawling around in my attic yesterday most of the day, and I must have been plus 40 up there.
Oh, that is not fun at all. Not fun.
But I think I got the right place. I think you can expect me to have a nice clear signal. And other than that, been out enjoying the sun, enjoying the garden. Just can't complain about this weather.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it was a big month again, so we'll go to the weekly stats first, and then we'll talk about the monthly stats. Give me 1 second, and there we go. So there's our weekly stats, and you know what? It was another solid week. So, we had 602 new listings come on the market, and as always, these are detached listings. So 602 and then 502. I'm literally doing the calculations in my head. It's been one of those days. So we have a total of 696, 502, and let me just see here, 194. Oops. Yeah, so good grief. Should have done this before we hit the airwaves. Let me try one more time. 502 plus 194 equals, nope. Okay, seriously. Anyway, what we were looking at last week was this little piece of paper with my fancy graphics showing what was the spread, right? So our spread went down again this week because we're at 696. I can do that in my head. So we were only 94 ahead in terms of sales and pendings compared to new listings. So now that is when I look at that piece of paper, which I have kept since last week. So there's last week's piece of paper, right? So we had 145 spread. The lowest spread we had prior to that was the week of May 6 to 13 at 97. So we're getting very technical here, but with the spread going down now, that's 2 out of the last 3 weeks it's getting closer, right? Now, having said that, we had 52 expired, total of 2871 detached listings, and 6304 total listings, including all the other categories. So again, 2 out of the last 3 weeks are spread, and that's kind of a data point that I've come up with. I don't know if it's scientific or not, but I'm just seeing the spread shrink between our new listings and then our solds plus pendings, because solds plus pendings, as Jaden knows and I know, have been well above new listings really since probably February would be my guess without going back to the stats. So let's take that off the screen and let's go to our monthly Calgary Real Estate Board monthly statistics. So this is kind of, and as I mentioned in my community update earlier today, this is kind of what you see as a realtor when we go in. So I'm going to try and decipher some of this for you. So what's nice here is we actually have a comparison to May 2019, which I quite like. And that's why I wanted to show this to you today. And probably moving forward, this is what I will use, because it's really tough to compare May 2020. We were still in lockdown. People didn't know, how do we show a house with all these protocols and all that kind of stuff? Well, we know now. But back then we had no clue. So you can see total sales in May 2020, 671, May 2011, or May 2021, 1,911. So even from 2 years prior, that's a 62% increase in total sales. New listings, we had 2,732 compared to 1,361 a year ago. And even 2 years ago, 2010. So even again, a 35%, almost 36% increase compared to 2 years ago. Our benchmark price, take a look at that. So we're 12% up from 2 years ago, which again is probably the better comparison than a year ago. Pendings, like massive jump in pendings. Median price, average price, which I actually don't pay a lot of attention to because the benchmark price is more of an index of what's actually happening in each community. So 12% increase in this is detached. So detached prices have gone up 12%. If we look at our total numbers are that we had a increase of 10.62%. So that takes into account apartment condos, which traditionally have been really struggling price-wise, row townhouses, semi-detached or duplexes, as a lot of people tend to refer to them. So 10% overall, and then 12% for detached. But when I look at communities like mine in Woodbine, we actually had a 15%, 16% increase in detached benchmark prices. Everything is selling. There's less than a month of inventory, which means we're firmly in a seller's market still. Airdrie is the same. Okotoks is the same. So we're still in that. But again, when we look at weekly stats, we see that the spread is shrinking. So we keep an eye on that. And like I said, I think once we see that, go down and down and down for a month, I think then maybe we have a trend, right? So, Jayden, that's all I've got. So that is my market update. How this week was the big change, alleged big change in it was a change.
Yeah.
In the stress test, and what have you seen on the ground this week with that?
Yeah, certainly. So I have, a couple of pre-approvals that I'm working on that actually just came to me in the last couple of days. So they weren't going to have an offer in prior to June 1st anyway. And one of them is actually impacting their affordability. Their landlord is selling their house, and there's a certain price point that they want to be at. And it's squeezing them there a little bit. So, as much as I do downplay the impact because I don't think it's a sky is falling scenario,
Yes.
it's hitting some families. And so they're having to look at some alternative ways to maybe raise a little bit more capital for the down payment to make that purchase happen. Other families that I'm working with, we're on a pretty strict internal budget. And so it really hasn't impacted them in a meaningful way, right? Like when they look at the fact that their maximum purchase price has gone down, that's a non-impact thing to them because they weren't looking to max out anyway, right? So, I had clients a couple of weeks ago that went down from 680 to 650, and they're looking to max out at 550. So, it definitely is hitting some people.
Right.
Exactly
as you said it would, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
that's last week or the week before. So
Yeah, of course, and so and I really don't want to downplay it in that way because it is impacting families. I think it is poor decision making on the part of the government, and I think it's lipstick on a pig trying to make a non-issue seem like they're dealing with it, right? Like this crazy bubble that the bubble is going to pop like it did in the States, and the real estate market will collapse, right? And that's we have such protections built in with the current stress test. It was just over 15 months ago, right before COVID hit, where they were actually going to decrease the stress test because they thought it was a little bit too aggressive. And now these moves happen, right? So, I would love to see government policy at some point not be reactionary and political, but actually based on what's good for the Canadian marketplace.
yes.
But yeah, honestly, I think people are still buying houses. I've still got a deal that I'm firming up tomorrow. It hasn't slowed down that part of things in any way whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, and my perspective on it is the people that are paying $200,000 and $300,000 above asking, they have money either way. So
Yep.
that's what they're really trying to do is reduce. Like in Calgary, on a $400,000-$500,000 listing, maybe you're paying, max 50 grand above asking. It's not ideal, but at the same time, if the market goes up, and we know cyclically every 10 years, you always have an increase in
Mm-hmm.
prices. And it happens before that, but I'm just saying if you look at a 10-year stretch, right? So it's not Calgary's problem again, but again, they're cutting off their nose to spite their face. That's my comment on that. So, but as Jayden has mentioned, talk a little bit about what you said last week about not going to your max so that this doesn't affect you.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm here to tell you what your max is, and honestly, that's what legally, according to the insurers, and if you're putting less than 20% down, that's what you can afford. And so I honestly I have no problem getting you there. But the issue with when you go to your max is that all of a sudden, if you need an exception on a little policy thing, that starts piling up a little bit. So if you had, maybe a couple of late cell phone payments because you were switching over and that's on your credit bureau, if you were a little bit further away from your max, they could overlook that a little bit easy. They might take it a little bit more seriously if you're maxing out. If you're getting a gift as a down payment, that's not a big deal, and it's something very common in this day and age. But if your whole down payment is gifted, you don't really have any backup savings, you got that tiny little credit issue, and now you're maxing out. I've seen declines on that basis on a deal that very, very much fit the letter of the law. But
Yeah.
in spite of that, because they were considered to be maxing out, it became a decline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it more than ever emphasizes, get your stuff into Jaden, right? Get pre-approved so you know what your max is. He'll tell you what that is. And then we can stay within that, well within that. So you're not bumping up against that max price, even if you have to go in and offer, listing price or even slightly above in a competing offer situation, right?
Yeah, and then you're not, like when June 1st came, you're not panicking because you know what your budget is, you know what you want to spend, but you know you can afford more than that, whatever. Or if you're really, really tight and you found that's the price range that you have to be in, you should have been jumping beforehand, right? So yeah, that's the importance of working with somebody closely and making sure you're prepared for those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Great information this week. And seriously, people, reach out to Jaden if you have questions. I had somebody reach out to me today and said, hey, is it okay if would you be okay doing a market valuation? We're not sure if we're selling. I said, absolutely. I mean, that is what we are both here for. We both have that giver's mentality. So we're happy to help. And we're always available to you. Maybe not 24/7, hey, Jaden, but 18, 6.5.
Yeah, like my toddler usually comes over sometime around 2 in the morning. So feel free to call right in that window. Yeah.
Exactly. Awesome. Great stuff, Jaden. You have an amazing weekend. Try and stay cool as possible. And then we will talk to you next week when it probably won't be plus 30.
Yeah. I guess we can't complain too much. You enjoy it too, buddy.
It's been awesome. You have a good one. We'll see you all next week, everybody. Thanks for watching.